Justin Baldoni has responded to Blake Lively's motion to dismiss, claiming the MeToo law doesn't apply to Blake Lively's fabricated harassment claims.
Okay, so this just got real. Justin Baldoni is not backing down, and his response just lit the fuse on what could turn into one of the most explosive legal fights Hollywood's seen in a while. The drama started with Blake Lively's shocking allegations, but now, Justin's team is flipping the script, accusing her of manipulating the system for personal gain. And they're coming in hot. In a scathing public statement, Justin's attorney didn't just defend him. They basically declared this entire case a fight for the First Amendment. According to them, what Blake is doing could destroy a core American. Right, the ability to go to court and clear your name. That's not just a legal technicality. If what they're saying sticks, it could mean anyone, celebrity or not, could be silenced before they even get a chance to defend themselves. His lawyer straight up called Blake's move dangerous, saying she's trying to shut the courthouse. Doors on Justin and everyone else involved. Their message? This isn't just about one celebrity feud. It's about stopping a legal precedent that could screw over anyone falsely accused. And they're not letting it slide. Now here's where things get even more intense. They're not saying Blake just misunderstood something or felt uncomfortable. Nope. They're accusing her of knowingly making false claims, that she weaponized the legal system, especially a new law that barely anyone understands yet, to basically hijack a project and rehab her public image after a string of PR disasters. Yeah, that's not just messy, that's calculated, if true. And this isn't some vague allegation either. Justin's legal team says they've got proof. Full text threads, transcripts, context, not cherry-picked messages, everything. And they're betting that when a judge reads it all, even assuming it's 100% true, Blake's case won't hold up. That's a bold move, but one that could pay off big if the court agrees. So yeah, things just escalated fast. What looked like a standard celebrity lawsuit has suddenly turned into a high-stakes constitutional showdown, with free speech, Hollywood power plays, and career reputations all on the line. And this is only the beginning. Alright, so here's where things get really intense. Justin Baldoni's legal team isn't just pushing back on Blake Lively's claims, they're framing this entire thing as a fight for constitutional rights. Like, literally. His lawyer, Brian, dropped a full statement that sounds less like a defense and more like a declaration of war. He's basically saying, look, Blake and her Hollywood circle can't just silence my clients and block them from defending themselves in court. That's the core of it. According to him, if they let Blake get away with using this new law to shut down lawsuits, then it's not just about this case anymore. It's a threat to every American's First Amendment right to petition the court. Pretty wild, right? He argues that what Blake is doing sets a scary precedent, like slamming the courthouse doors shut and punishing people just for trying to clear their name. And honestly, when you hear it like that, it does sound kind of terrifying, because if someone makes a serious accusation about you, and you're legally barred from even responding, that's not just unfair, that's dangerous. Brian's team paints it as a power move, using a law meant to protect real victims, not to silence the accused. He even calls it a blatant attempt to weaken the Constitution to serve those in power. Yikes. And that's what makes this whole situation more than just another Hollywood scandal. It's turning into a legit legal showdown about how much power one person has to make claims, and whether the other side has the right to fight back. The craziest part? This isn't just about Baldoni anymore. This could actually shape how courts handle these kinds of cases in the future. Like, this might be the case that defines what's protected speech and what crosses the line into defamation. And yeah, Blake might not have expected it to go this far, but now she's right in the center of a battle that could shift legal precedent for years. Okay, so here's where things get seriously wild. You know how in most legal cases there are established rules, precedents, stuff judges can actually follow? Not here. Section 47.1 is basically a newborn law. Like, it exists, but no one really knows how to use it yet. There isn't a single published case where a judge has ruled on it. Not one. That's what makes it such a wild card in this entire mess. Now, the way this law is supposed to work is kind of specific. It says if someone reports harassment, but does it without malice and based on a reasonable belief, then their statements can't be used against them in court. Sounds fair, right? But here's the catch. What even counts as malice or a reasonable belief? That's exactly the gray area this case is about to test. Hard. Justin Baldoni's team is calling this out. They're saying Blake Lively abused this law. They claim she didn't just report harassment. She twisted or straight up invented things, exaggerated moments that weren't even close to being inappropriate, and then used it all to push Justin out and take control of the movie. Basically, they're painting her actions as calculated, malicious, strategic, and here's where it it gets even trickier. Since no judge has ever ruled on 47.1 before, this case could end up being the first one to define what the law actually means. Imagine that. One Hollywood battle could literally shape how future courts interpret harassment claims, free speech protections, and access to justice. That's why Justin's lawyer said this isn't just about them. It's about all Americans. Dramatic? Maybe, but kind of true. And just to make things messier, this is happening in New York, but the law is from California. So a New York judge is being asked to interpret a California law that no California judge has ever touched. There's a very real chance they'll say, yeah, we're not touching this, and kick it back to the California Supreme Court for guidance. If that happens, this whole thing could drag on for years, just waiting for someone to officially say what 47.1 really means. So yeah, imagine trying to defend yourself in court, but the rulebook hasn't even been written yet. That's what's happening here. It's uncharted legal territory, and both sides are trying to make history. So, here's where things really take a sharp turn, because Baldoni's legal team isn't just saying Blake Lively made a false claim, they're saying she strategically did it, with malice, to take control of the film and fix her own public image after a string of embarrassing PR flops. I mean, that's not a small accusation. They're literally framing it as a calculated move, not just a misunderstanding or a bad call. And here's where it gets even deeper. According to the lawsuit, she either fabricated the harassment entirely or took normal, non-threatening interactions and twisted them to look sinister. It's not just that she felt uncomfortable. Baldoni's lawyers argue she intentionally exaggerated moments to flip the narrative in her favor. That's a whole different game, especially when you factor in the timeline. Right after her branding took a hit, boom, this whole thing explodes. They even claim she had help, that it was a coordinated effort with her team, maybe even others, involved in the project to seize creative control. Like, imagine that. You're working on a film and suddenly someone flips the table, paints you as the villain, and starts steering the entire production. That's the vibe his lawyers are going for here. A power play, cloaked in serious accusations. But here's the key. Under Section 47.1, if she didn't have a reasonable basis for those claims, and especially if there was malice involved, she could lose any protection under the law. And according to Baldoni's team, that's exactly what happened. They're saying the whole thing was a setup, carefully designed to look like a legal claim, but really just a personal vendetta mixed with a PR rescue mission. It's bold, right? But they're not just making noise. They dropped receipts, full text threads, timestamps, transcripts, basically daring the court to read it all and see what really happened. And from the looks of it, they're confident that once it's all out there, the story Blake tried to tell won't hold up. Honestly, it feels like this case is about way more than just two people in a feud. It's about motives, manipulation, and whether the legal system can catch someone trying to weaponize it for their own gain. Justin Baldoni's team didn't just show up to court with vague statements. They brought an avalanche of evidence. We're talking full text threads, detailed timelines, transcripts, even behind-the-scenes stills from the set. It's like they were preparing for this the moment the drama started. And here's the kicker. Under the current legal stage, the judge has to assume every single thing in Justin's complaint is true. That's the law. He can't say, I'm not sure I believe that. Nope, he's legally bound to read it like it's 100% fact. So with Justin dropping this mountain of receipts, it seriously tips the scale. One of the most brutal parts, the texts. Some of the messages Blake allegedly sent show her actively engaging in flirtatious banter, stuff that could totally undercut her claim that she was uncomfortable or harassed. Because for a sexual harassment claim to stick, it has to be unwelcome. That's literally one of the legal requirements. So if she was part of the conversation, playing along, or even initiating it, that's a huge problem for her side. Plus, Baldoni's team is arguing that she didn't just exaggerate the situation. She allegedly twisted harmless interactions into something much darker, all as part of a bigger plan. They're saying this wasn't just a personal issue. It was calculated, a strategic move to gain control of the film project and fix her public image after some major marketing flops. Basically, that she weaponized the narrative. Now, is that malicious intent? If the court thinks so, that's a game changer. It flips the whole case around and makes her the aggressor in the story. So yeah, the evidence war is messy, but with the legal deck stacked to assume everything in Justin's complaint is true for now, Blake's team might be in serious trouble, especially if the full context of those texts proves she wasn't just a victim, but also a willing participant. Alright, let's talk about this mysterious Section 47.1, the law everyone keeps bringing up but barely anyone fully understands. Even legal experts are like, yeah, we're still figuring this one out. That's because, believe it or not, this law has never been tested in a published court decision. Zero precedent. It's basically legal quicksand. So what does it even say? In short, It's designed to protect people who make claims of discrimination or harassment, as long as they do it without malice and have a reasonable basis. But here's the catch. Baldoni's team is claiming that Blake didn't meet those standards. They argue she fabricated or twisted events just to take control of the film and rehab her image. And here's where things get really tricky. Since no other court has interpreted this law before, the judge is kind of flying blind. There's a chance he could pass the issue up to the California Supreme Court and say, hey, you guys figure this out. If that happens, this case could drag on for years. We're talking 2, maybe even 3. And not because it's complicated on a human level, but because legally it's a hot mess. What makes it even messier? Section 4701 doesn't apply to everyone involved. So even if Blake's statements were somehow protected under this law, her so-called co-conspirators, like Ryan Reynolds, might still be on the hook, especially since he allegedly called Baldoni a predator, which goes way beyond legal protection. So basically, this law was meant to shield victims, but in this case, the question is, did Blake misuse it? Is she bending it to fit a narrative? And if she is, what does that mean for other people who genuinely need this kind of protection? Now let's talk strategy, because make no mistake, this case isn't just happening in the courtroom. It's being played out in the public eye too. And Blake Lively's team? Yeah, they definitely made a move when that viral article dropped. It wasn't some random leak. That felt calculated, like a signal flare meant to sway public opinion before the legal dust even settles. Her lawyers finally went public with a bold statement, which is something we hadn't really seen up until that point. And while it was framed to sound neutral, it definitely leaned in her favor. But here's what's interesting. Why now? According to a lot of legal watchers, Blake's team probably realized the momentum was slipping. Baldoni's side had been dominating the narrative with evidence-heavy complaints, text threads, and a timeline that painted a pretty detailed picture. So this was Blake trying to regain control, reframe the conversation, remind everyone that, hey, even if his story is loud, hers is serious. But let's not forget, this PR war cuts both ways. Baldoni's lawyers also knew what they were doing. They framed Blake's complaint as not just false, but maliciously orchestrated to sabotage the film and protect her own image after some marketing flops. Whether that's true or not, the way they presented it was aimed at one thing: undermining her credibility in the court of public opinion. Even the timing of court filings seems strategic. Some of these drops feel perfectly timed to overshadow key developments or keep momentum going in the headlines. And then there's Ryan Reynolds, who got dragged into this, not just legally, but publicly. That predator comment, if proven, that's a PR nightmare. In the end, both sides are trying to do more than win a case. They're trying to protect their careers, their reputations, and in Blake's case, possibly a whole franchise. It's a battle being fought on 2 fronts, the courtroom and the comment section. And right now, neither side is backing down. And in the meantime, the public perception war keeps raging, careers stay on the line, and nobody walks away clean. What makes it even messier is that the statute, by design, is supposed to protect genuine victims from retaliation, but at the same time, it shouldn't be a weapon for false claims. And finding that balance is now sitting in the lap of one judge who's reading 2 completely different versions of reality and being told, assume this one's all true. So yeah, legal chaos. If this statute holds up the way Baldoni's team wants, it could become a game changer. Not just in this case, but in every celebrity defamation or harassment suit that follows. If it falls apart though, that sends a whole different message. Either way, what happens next might not just shape this trial. It could rewrite the rules for how Hollywood handles scandals like this for years to come.